Usually you have to seek out personal financial education. For whatever reason, it is not taught in K through 12 formally.
I did not go to college with a pension. I did not go to college with money saved up to pay for it. There's nothing I can do about my student loans right now.
Finance for the everyday millennial. Hard charging solutions. We provide an accelerant in the journey towards financial independence. Welcome to Cashing with Cash in the Financial Forum for Young Professionals. Today, we're going to talk about, you guessed it, finance with my friend, Mr. Kwame Phillips. If you've ever wondered what it's like in the day of a diversity, equity, and inclusion professional, you're about to find out. After graduating from Georgia Southern Armstrong campus with a bachelor's in business and managerial economics in 2013, and then again with his master's in communications in 2015, he decided to serve as the assistant director for the Office of Multicultural Affairs for his alma mater, before transferring to Johns Hopkins University, where he currently serves as the assistant director for the Office of Multicultural Affairs. The thoughts, comments, and opinions that Mr. Phillips is about to express do not reflect the opinions of Johns Hopkins and are the sole responsibility of Kwame. Also, nothing discussed today should be taken as personalized investment advice. All right, now that we've gotten all that stuff out of the way, my first question to you, Kwame, is how are you doing?
I am doing well. It is a great day here in the city of Baltimore, Maryland, and things are going well here at the Johns Hopkins University.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear it. Kind of take us through what your day looks like. What do you primarily spend most of your time doing as a diversity, equity, and inclusion professional, stuff like that?
So I am currently a member of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion here at Johns Hopkins University. I serve in the capacity as the Associate Director of Multicultural Affairs. So I'm now the department head leading multicultural affairs here at Johns Hopkins. And my goal is really daily to serve the historically marginalized, minoritized students here at Johns Hopkins, both undergraduate and graduate across all 9 campuses. And every day is a bit different. But one thing that is really consistent is how do we really meet the needs of students of color, students of marginalized and minoritized identities, ensuring that they feel like they belong. There's a sense of belonging, there's a sense of identity. They see themselves in the fabrics of Johns Hopkins University. And so through that, we offer services, programs, we provide support to over 40 plus intercultural student organizations here on campus. We provide ongoing learning opportunities to become more culturally competent. No one is ever arriving or remaining at a place of fully knowing everything there is to know about DEI. And so the learning must be ever going. And so that's really how I kind of spend my days and weeks, is really being a curator for a sense of belonging and really bringing all of the pieces together, the people, the services, the support, and the learning outcomes together to create this holistic DEI experience at Johns Hopkins.
If you could talk about why you decided to go the academic route over going to work for Microsoft or Apple and their DE&I, because your profession is just exploding. Everybody needs a DE&I person in their C-suite or on their staff, making sure that their employees are feeling like they are being included in the overall prosperity and success of that enterprise. So if you could kind of talk to us a little bit about why you chose academia over some other field.
So if truth be kept, I honestly did not know DEI was a career field. Diversity, equity, inclusion was a career field. Honestly, I was on the trajectory of becoming a lawyer, a corporate attorney. My undergraduate studies was economics, but don't hold that to me later on in the segment. I studied economics and preparation for corporate law. I tell this story often about this journey, is that one of my first internships was at the juvenile court system in Chatham County in Georgia. And in that experience, I got an opportunity, of course, to work with the judges, the attorneys, the probationary officers. But what really really resonated with me was working with the young people who were coming in and out of this system. And the goal of the system is to rehabilitate these young people back into society. However, once you kind of get into that cycle, it's kind of hard to break that cycle. Mm-hmm. And many of them come with hopelessness. And with hopelessness, it lingers and it leads to outcomes that are not fortunate for those going through the system. So, however, I saw that and I'm like, I'm on the wrong side of justice. I'm on the wrong side. I don't want to be reactive. I want to be proactive. So there was an opportunity to work in the Office of Multicultural Affairs after graduating. The director, Nasha Wittenberg, she said, you should be a GA. I know you're looking and working to apply to law school, X, Y, and Z, but how about you take a year to work for the Office of Multicultural Affairs? And essentially, Multicultural Affairs at Hopkins is very similar to what it is at Armstrong State University. And so I ended there and started there. And that's kind of how my career took off in this DEI space. And so in the university setting, it really launched really as a multicultural affairs or intercultural affairs, which now has more so evolved as a diversity and inclusion. Honestly, I landed here on purpose.
That's awesome. There's nothing like a good catalyst story, right? Mm-hmm. That really gives you that epiphany moment. Like, I know I was going down this path, but based on this experience, that experience was so strong and had such an impact, you decided to kind of shift, and now you're extremely happy with what you're currently doing. I do have several follow-ups to that, but I want to move into the personal finance part of the conversation, and we'll kind of get back to the professional side a little bit later. So my first finance question is going to be, what has your personal financial education looked like?
My personal finance education has been primarily informal, through conversations with friends, with mentors, to name a few, Dr. Wayne Johnson, you yourself, also, with being a part of Collegiate 100 at Armstrong State University, we will often go through a series of workshops that focus on finance 101, investments 101. And so the education has been ongoing, intentional and unintentional. Also, I have gone through the process of when I began to go through the opportunity or the process to buy a house. I went through homeowner buyers education course, which was in depth, and it kind of went through the different nuances, which also supported this personal financial education piece. And so essentially it's been both formal, informal, but primarily informal, based on conversations and connections with friends and family, and by way of me making some financial decisions in my personal life.
Yeah, that is definitely a common thread across professions. If you're an engineer, if you're a teacher, if you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, usually you have to seek out personal financial education for whatever reason. And I have my theories about this. It is not taught in K through 12. Or in a lot of undergrad and graduate programs formally. At Rhino Invest, we're really on a mission to kind of fill that massive gap of providing quality education so that people can take and use it. If you're not able to receive education that's applicable, you're not going to use it. And so we're really passionate here at Rhino Invest about creating content for public consumption, as well as courses and things that are in Club Rhino Plus that people can go and take to increase their financial literacy and IQ, so that they can start to make better financial decisions. Because you kind of talked about the process of purchasing your home as a first-time home buyer has been critical to you being exposed to personal financial education. And there is a lot of stuff in there, but there's also a lot of stuff that's not in there, right? I'm assuming they're not talking to you about estate planning, They're not talking to you about insurance planning outside of property insurance that you have to have as a part of purchasing the home. They're probably not talking to you a lot about tax strategy. Do you feel like what you've received thus far has been sufficient in order for you to achieve whatever your stated financial goals are?
I think that it's been efficient enough to ignite or to begin the process of actually putting that information to work.
Mm-hmm.
But the way life works as you are adulting, there are so many competing priorities.
Yeah.
In a way where life moves so quickly, but with financing or with just really building your personal financial education, your repertoire, your knowledge, you really have to take out time to do so beyond just watching or watching a documentary or watching something on YouTube or there are many financial advisors that you see even on social media. But even going beyond that, you have to, with personal financial education, what I've learned is you have to really take time out to do X, Y, and Z. And it does require some time. And so I am guilty of that. I could do more with the information given by allocating more time to really dive deep into it. But oftentimes there are other really competing priorities with work and the environment in which I work. My job is like two-facing. So I have to be student-facing, but also at the same time, I have to also meet the needs of staff and faculty and administrators. And so oftentimes those competing priorities sometimes does get in the way of trying to be more intentional about how you really utilize your personal finance education and knowledge. So there's this fight between intentionality and efficiency.
Yeah. You, lawyers, engineers, law enforcement, you're all very busy professionals. And so, yeah, I completely understand how you guys have to prioritize what gets done and what doesn't get done, which is why my entire profession exists, in order to give you that extra time back. Somebody has your back to make sure that you can actually achieve some of those stated financial goals. My next question is one of my most favorite questions. What has been the most traumatic experience that you've had with money?
Yeah. I must say that the most traumatic experience have been really based around student loans. I'm a first generation college graduate. I come from a working class family. Funds for college were limited, and financial aid alongside federal student loans were how I really matriculated through undergraduate and graduate school. There was, on my part, misusage and mismanagement of the amount of dollars I took out. I thought that the trajectory of becoming a corporate attorney, I'll be able to pay back these loans quickly, and that it really would not impede on any future financial goals that I would have, because I would have a lucrative job, a job that would make decent money for a very modest lifestyle to do what I want, but at the same time pay back the loans. I was mistaken. It is not like that. If you don't pay along the way, unless you're in forbearance, the interest on those loans accumulate if you don't make payments. And when it comes to the home buying process, that's when the traumatic experience happened. Because even with the FHA loan, they take 1% of your loan and that factor that into the buying process. And they add that into or what they call your debt to income ratio. And if your debt to income ratio is not where it needs to be, then that could really prohibit your whole home buying process. I started out not on the FHA loan. Help me out with the other loan. What was the other loan? What's the other loan? Home loan.
It's a conventional
loan. Yes, conventional loan. And I was on trajectory to secure that loan. I had so many moving parts that went wrong, from my buyer's agent to the seller agent and even to the bank. And there were so many issues there. But the long story short, the conventional loan, there was issue with this program. I get to a week before close, and the lady said, we're going to have to consider you for FHA. And also wasn't really enough time to even really process that, because the seller agent did not want to wait for me to switch over for the FHA loan. And so with all of those moving parts, honestly, it left a deep scar where the home owning buying process for me did not go over well, and it did not yield the outcome that I wanted.
At a federal level, we're starting to see the impacts of student loans in our generation and how we made these decisions as 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds to take out these massive amounts of loans without really understanding the second and third order effects of that decision. Because once you're looking at 1% of the balance being calculated as your payment included into your debt to income ratio, you could be making significantly over the average income for someone in your age and in your area, but that 1% skews everything. And now you are outside of the window, and now you're deciding, do I even want to purchase a home? Can I even purchase a home? And if I can, am I able to get the type of home that I want? Because I no longer qualify for that $400,000 home. Now I can only get a $300,000 home based on the payment that the bank is allowing me to have. So, that is extremely traumatic. I am so sorry that you had to go through that. But going through that, what have you decided to do to rectify this specific situation, and to make sure that you're not in a situation like this moving forward?
Understanding the banking system, your financial portfolio. I'll start there. Oftentimes we can choose the wrong bank to work with, the wrong financial advisor to work with in that process. So finding someone that you can trust. There's nothing I can do about my student loans right now, but pay them. But what I can do is I could have considered buying a home that was a lower price. But because I was so traumatized by the experience, I really felt like I was discriminated in that process, to be quite honest with you, the way all things unfolded. But at the end of the day, when working with various institutions, they don't care, honestly, about how you feel and how traumatic it is. Because at the end of the day, if you look at historical context, the housing industry, the home buying process, has always discriminated against people of color. And so understanding the system, understanding the people, understanding how the historical and even contemporary context work, finding people of color who own businesses such as Rhino Invest would really take the process for myself and others a step further.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that it's been blatant and subliminal that there's been discrimination in historically disenfranchised groups in the real estate sector, for sure. We could talk about that all day. That's a whole other segment. You kind of said something that spoke to me here, which was the professionals that you used, the realtors, the lenders, the financial advisors, and you felt like you weren't being heard, right? You were being discriminated against. It kind of led me to make sure that everyone listening today understands that whenever you work with anybody, you are in charge of that process. And if you ever feel like you're not being heard or listened to, or they don't understand how to best serve you, you definitely need to find someone else with a teacher's heart. The next question I have, we're going to get into some facts, data, and statistics. According to salary.com, the average salary for a diversity, equity, and inclusion manager is somewhere around $131,000 a year nationwide, and $134,000 in the Baltimore, Maryland area. Obviously, this is private and public sector averages. The source is also linked in the description of this episode. But do these numbers resonate with you at all? And did you know statistics like this before you moved from the Office of Multicultural Affairs in general to DEI more specifically?
In my space, I work in DEI in a educational academic space. And if anybody that works in student affairs, academic affairs, as an administrator or professional staff member, you'll know that you get into the work for the intent to have impact in the academic setting. The numbers are probably cut in half. 60 to 90K as a DEI manager in the higher education space. And that's with 9 to 10 years under your belt.
Are you looking to make the transition from higher ed to some of these higher paying sectors?
I have been doing research. It goes back to what is your why? Why are you in the DEI space? What am I looking to contribute? And then what impact am I looking to leave? I do desire to grow in my career field within DEI, whether that's in higher education or other sectors.
I am not your financial planner. If I were, I would be, kind of advising that you do exactly what you're doing. Investigate through independent consultancy, build out that body of portfolio, that body of work to contribute to a portfolio, and then make a transition if you want to do W-2 from higher ed to another sector, or just go 100% independent. Just all you do is consultancy for all of these different sectors and things. Because I mean, this field is just so big and it's so new, right? And it's very encompassing of a bunch of different things that I just I see a lot of high growth potential in terms of salary and things like that and opportunities. So very exciting stuff.
Do you keep dreaming about when you'll be able to pursue your passions? It can be challenging to turn that dream into reality while providing quality care to your patients, addressing your student loans, and living a comfortable life. I'm Cash Nunez, the CEO of Rhino Invest, and I'm here to share a better way, the Rhino way, which will make you financially independent sooner so that you can start to do more of what you are actually passionate about. Becoming a Rhino will increase your financial IQ by making you familiar with the concept of risk and return, the different asset classes available for investment, and how you can take advantage of those options immediately. You'll have access to curated courses, online calculators, wealth guides, checklists, and your own net worth tracker. All this and more with your Rhino account. So I invite you to take the first step towards realizing your goals by opening an account today. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to working with you.
Black college graduates owe an average of $25,000 more in student loan debt than white college graduates. And 4 years after graduation, 48% of Black students owe an average of 12% more than they borrowed. What are some of the things that you're doing at the collegiate level to combat these numbers and bring them at least in parity with the white student loan borrowers?
First, the institution in which you work to have access to wealth, access to resources, giving back to the institution, giving back to your alma mater really supports and combats that on an individual all the way up to a structural level. And so I must pinpoint that as the first front. The second front is the education piece, is that even within my sphere of influence as the Associate Director for Multicultural Affairs, and then also I created the Black Male Initiative program here at Johns Hopkins, similar to what I did at Armstrong State University with the Men of Vision of Excellence program. Both of those programs always, and even in Collegiate 100, always had an economic development component, is that to empower Black men, Black women, women of color, men of color, to think about their social economic impact and what they can do to really have influence in that space.
That's good. You definitely, I think, are kind of hitting the nail on the head with making sure that the financial education is being included in the curriculum in their pursuit toward whatever their degree path is. Because if you just leave it as an elective, I don't think people are placing the level of importance that personal financial education places, they're probably assuming, oh, I'm graduating from Johns Hopkins, I'm going to be making at least six figures and I'll be able to clean all that stuff up later. And sometimes that really just is not the case. And sometimes it's not really necessary, because if you have a little bit of education, you're able to engage in some preventative measures so that there's a lot less for you to have to clean up. So yeah, that's awesome to hear. I'm starting to think about creating content for your audience. My content is graduate level. Usually you have to have at least a bachelor's, working on your master's in order to really comprehend some of the concepts that we're talking about. Not just because the information is extremely complex, because we do our best to keep it in layman's terms, but you need resources, right? And most times you need to be in a profession where you're compensated to a place where you can invest and take advantage of the things we're talking about. However, there's still a lot of stuff that people making $0 can know and then act upon in order to engage in some of those preventative things. So it's good that you're including that in the curriculum. What do you most and least look forward to about your job?
I'm gonna start with the least part. And working in diversity, equity, inclusion on a collegiate level or in an academic setting, you're more of a generalist in a way that doesn't allow you to. You have your hands in so many pots. You're impacting so many different audiences. You're curating various types of outcomes, whether it's through services, programs, whether it's through learning outcomes. And so there are a lot of moving parts, or whether you're impacting and effectuating change in policy and culture and people. And so when you have so many moving parts, one, it is challenging to talk about or even engage in independent consultancy, or think about ways you can create passive income or create even income outside of your full-time position. And so for me, that has been one of the least things that I really enjoy about the job, is that I literally have to be a generalist, have to know a lot about a lot of things. And it does not allow for me to be, if anybody knows me, I'm a perfectionist. And so I like to perfect things. I like to get to a point where it's a well-oiled machine. But what I do love most is when people see that they are valued, they belong, and that it's not performative, but the company, the workplace really values their voice, their concerns, their issues, but more importantly, their expertise and skills. And when they say it is because of your contributions, your expertise, your DEI experience and what you're bringing to this space, it really makes the least more palatable.
I got you. What are some of the employee benefits enjoyed by folks in your industry that people thinking about joining might not be aware of?
Of course, Hopkins in this way offer, of course, retirement, 403B. They contribute, I believe, a healthy amount in matching what you give into your retirement or provide into your retirement. Health savings account has great medical benefits. Also, they offer opportunities for mental health, whether it's via counseling psychologists that are either in-house or external. There are great benefits in that regard. Also, I love that Hopkins does offer tuition remission up to about $10K every year. And also there are opportunities to take courses at the Carey Business School in Baltimore, Maryland, which is one of the 9 schools, a part of Johns Hopkins University. So there are amazing benefits. I think one of the benefits that that also is amazing is that Baltimore, that Johns Hopkins has this thing called Live Where You Work, and so you're able to purchase a home within the mile radius of Hopkins. Within Baltimore, you're able to get a set number of dollars to support in your closing costs, and so that's one of the other amazing parts about Johns Hopkins and becoming an employee of Hopkins. And so those are some of the leading benefits. Of course, across industries is going to vary. Of course, you get time off. You receive professional development both internally and externally. But across industries is going to vary, but very much be very similar.
That's really cool that they have this Live Where You Work program and kind of contribute to the closing costs. That's an awesome benefit. In terms of the employer matching contributions to your 403B, do you know what that percentage is?
Yes, it's 20% on the first 3% of your base salary that you contribute.
Okay, 20% of the first 3% that you contribute. Okay. What are the barriers to entry for becoming a diversity, equity, and inclusion professional? So if you could talk to us about any mandatory certifications, if there's some sort of a governing board that dictates who is and who is not a DEI professional, kind of talk us through what that looks like.
Like I stated early in the interview that I studied economics. But because of my undergraduate experience, work experience, and the departments that I was working in, the things that I were doing in the community, it aligned with what was being asked in the job description. And so my work experience and impact as an undergraduate student, when it was time to become a graduate assistant, then a program coordinator, I had the experience to allow me to do this work. But since then, I have gone through trainings, conferences, certifications to be able to do this work more effectively.
Very, very, very helpful. So you were grandfathered in, and as this, I guess, field or profession starts to grow and evolve, there are going to be requirements that people who are just now entering the space they need to adhere to and be in compliance with. So that's cool. We are now moving into my favorite segment of the show. So you think you're smarter than a rhino. There are going to be 6 questions here. We just ask that you give it your best shot and make an attempt at each one. You are not going to be judged by anybody other than me. I will judge you because that's just that person I am. Yeah, just give it your best shot. And it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. We're going to get through this together. All right.
Hey, let's do it.
Are you ready?
I am as ready as your questions are.
Okay. All right. So the first question, what are the 4 types of asset classes?
Asset classes. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to go this way. Stocks, bonds, real estate, and I'm tapping out.
Okay. So that is not correct. Holy. It's real estate. That is one of them. Commodities, securities, which is similar to stocks. Also bonds, real estate investment trust, money market account things. And then business. So real estate, commodities, securities, and business. Real estate probably is the easiest to understand. You've got a tangible asset that is producing income for you. It could be residential, it could be industrial, retail, commercial. Commodities, probably the least understood, and that's things like cattle, precious metals, and energy. Securities, that's probably the most popular. The stock market is where you sell a majority of your securities, your stocks, your bonds, ETFs, things like that. And then starting a business. You could start one from scratch. You could purchase a franchise, a McDonald's, a Subway. All of these are businesses that are considered assets producing income. So those are the 4. All right. Question number 2.
So do I get half credit on the first one?
Yeah, I'll give you half credit. That's fair. Stocks, security, and real estate is one of the answers. So I'll give you half credit.
Okay.
Number two, what does the acronym FIRE stand for? FIRE.
Finance, invest, Rhino. Oh, Casher, don't judge me. That could be retirement. So yeah, finance, investments, retirement, and then E. It's always that fourth thing. I'm stuck on E. So I'm gonna tap out.
So that is not correct. It stands for financially independent, retire early. Get like really close. You said finance and it's financially, and then you said invest, but it's independent. You said retirement, it's retire, and then the E is early. So
Early.
FIRE is a massive movement happening within our generation. Financially independent, retire early. There are two parts of it. There's the financial independence part, which is what most financial advisors assist people with. It's essentially, how do you get to a place and what does that place look like where you no longer have to trade your time for money? That's when you're considered to be financially independent. And then what does retirement look like? That's the other half of it. People focus so much on that number. I need $10,000 per month coming in order to be considered financially independent, that they forget what they're going to do once they no longer have to trade their time for money. That retirement. Are you just going to golf? Are you going to give back to the church? Are you going to travel? What are you going to do? What does early retirement look like? So you have to start thinking about that. And more often than not, there are components of retirement that also cost money that need to be factored into that financial independence number. So it's a massive movement that's all about decreasing your expenses, increasing your income to get to a place where you no longer have to trade your time for money and you can retire early. Usually you're retiring in your late 30s, early 40s. So if you start when you're 22, you should be out of what Robert Kiyosaki calls the rat race in your late 30s or early 40s by engaging in some of these activities. Okay. Question number 3. What is the maximum contribution that you can make to a 401k or 403b in your case in 2022?
And this is a law that says this is the amount of dollars you can contribute.
The Internal Revenue Code dictates the maximum contribution that someone can make to various retirement vehicles. And I'm asking about 401ks or 403bs and 457s.
Let's go with maybe 10K a year. I don't even know where to guess.
What's your final answer?
I'm gonna go with 10K, but I don't think that's it. I don't think that's the max you can do.
All right. So that is not correct. The answer is $20,500 is the maximum amount that you can contribute to your 401k or 403b or 457. That number is set to go up to $21,500 in 2023.
When people can give more to their retirement, I guess they just place it outside of their retirement. They place it with stocks and bonds and other security, other investments.
You can go and you can purchase an individual retirement account, and that has its own limits of $6,000 in 2022, $7,000 in 2023. And then once you run out of different places to kind of store your cash for tax deferral advantages, then you have to go regular brokerage. And then just pay your taxes when you go and you take distributions. All right. Number 4. What is the equation for achieving financial independence?
Fixed income plus passive income plus retirement and plus real estate. It's going to give you financial independence.
Okay, that's your final answer? Fixed income plus passive income plus retirement plus real estate equals financial independence?
Yeah.
So that is not correct. The answer is passive income exceeding your expenses equals financially independent.
Okay.
So, however, you're able to invest in performing assets that produce that passive income is
one part of it. And once that passive income exceeds your expenses, that's when you've achieved financial independence. If you have 10 homes, 10 rental properties, each one producing $1,000 in passive income in excess of whatever expenses are attached to the asset, that's $10,000. As long as you don't need more than $10,000 to live, you are considered financially independent because you are no longer trading your time for money. Passive income, exceeding your expenses is how you get to be financially independent. Okay. Number 5, what is the difference between term and whole life insurance?
Term life insurance versus life insurance. Life insurance is funds that you get, of course, if I die, whoever is my benefactor, in order to pay off any debts or et cetera, funeral expenses, et cetera, and then else for everything else is according to their will, or according to whatever the will is, and according to however they decide to spend it. I think term life insurance is, I think funds can be utilized before demise, and you're able to pull out those funds at certain points to invest. I don't know how true that is, but I think in conversations I've heard something along those lines.
Your answer is the whole life insurance is money given to your beneficiaries at death, and then term is what you can use when you're still alive. You could pull it out and then use it for whatever.
For whatever, yes.
That's your final answer?
That is my final answer.
Unfortunately, that is not correct. If you had switched them, term life insurance is only for a term and only carries a death benefit. So your beneficiaries of your term life insurance policy can use that when you die only, because that's when they are paid for funeral expenses and other things. It's the whole life insurance policy that has that cash value amount that you can use as the owner of the life insurance policy for, whatever it is. You could take a loan against it and use it. It also comes with a death benefit. So when you die, there's also money that's paid out to the beneficiaries to pay for funeral costs and some other things. What I want to point out here is that we always, actually, I don't want to use an absolute. We, more often than not, advise our clients to purchase term life insurance over whole life insurance for a whole host of reasons, chief among them. If we are all doing our jobs right, if the client is doing their job, which is to adhere to the plan that we've created together and hitting all of the benchmarks in terms of income and making sure that they're keeping their expenses where they need to be, they will have enough money through purchasing performing assets to self-insure. If we look at the definition of insurance, the original intent of insurance, it's to mitigate risk. It is not supposed to be used as an investment vehicle. Insurance is to mitigate risk. It's for young people who are starting families and who have obligations to somebody else, to provide for money in the event that they pass away. When they pass away, they can pay their debts off. The folks that are surviving them can pay those debts off. And then if they have a spouse and if they have children, then some money can be left for them, right, in order to take care of them. So if that's what insurance is for, there is going to come a point where you no longer need an insurance company to provide that risk mitigation. You will have increased your net worth and amassed enough assets to self-insure. In the event of your demise, your spouse and your kids will have all those assets to live on, right? You no longer need that policy, which is why we advocate term life insurance over whole life insurance. It's significantly cheaper to purchase term, and we usually recommend a 15-year term because that's about how long it's going to take for you to amass the amount of assets required to self-insure. So yeah, that's the difference between term and whole, why we usually recommend term, and why we also recommend that people do not purchase whole life insurance. It's an overhyped product. that's oversold and not really applicable if you're doing the things that you are supposed to be doing. All right, so question number 6, the final question here. What does Rhino stand for? That's RINO. What does our company Rhino stand for?
I want to say RNI. I guess retirement investment, or it could be realizing investment net opportunities. Realizing investment net worth opportunities.
Okay. Realizing investments net worth opportunities. Final answer?
That's my answer.
So that is not correct. It is real education, investments in performing assets, no bad debt, and oversight of those assets. So those
are sentences for each word.
Yeah. At the beginning of the interview, we kind of talked about the importance of education. We provide a bunch of different pieces of content, some for public consumption, most for folks who decide to subscribe to the Club Rhino Plus membership. Inside of that membership, there are 4 courses with 4 hours of self-paced content covering securities, business, entrepreneurial personal finance, which is like our intro to personal finances, and then real estate investment. And we did it because we understand that there's a massive gap in formal education. We don't expect everybody to become a CFP, a certified financial planner. So we have to provide something for people to receive real applicable education so that they can hit the ground running. That's what we do in Club Rhino Plus. Once you have it, you're going to know how to identify and invest in performing assets. Mm-hmm. So your personal home, although it is an asset on your balance sheet, if you put money down, you're going to have equity. And then as the years progress, it's going to appreciate. And then you're going to have more equity as you pay down the mortgage. So it is an asset sitting on your balance sheet. It is not a performing asset because you are not making money. So we talk about performing assets and how to purchase them. And then you got to get out of bad debt. Student loans are probably the worst types of debt you can have, followed by credit cards. Because student loans, you can't get rid of at all. Bankruptcy, nothing. You got to pay them. They have to be forgiven. That's the only way you can get rid of student loans. So student loans, credit cards, personal loans, anything that is not tied to a performing asset, that is considered bad debt. And we have a video on the difference between bad debt and good debt because there is such a thing as good debt. And that's debt that is attached to something that is making you money. A mortgage on a rental property is considered good debt. And then oversight. And that ties back into the education part. You can't have oversight if you don't know what you're looking at. If someone hires a financial advisor and then they go in for their quarterly meeting or annual meeting and they're told that their net worth increased by $50,000, that might sound good, but really you should be asking relative to what? Was I supposed to be $200,000 increased in net worth, or were we expecting me to lose money and then we ended up making $50,000? It really depends on the situation. And the only way you're going to know if the information that you're receiving is good is if you have the education in order to engage in that high level of oversight. So real education, investments in performing assets, no bad debt, and then oversight of those assets is what Rhino stands for. And we thank you for playing. We really do. It is not easy. It is not easy at all. A lot of people are subject matter experts in what they do. And this is one of those things that we are trying to help people get a little bit smarter on, increase their financial IQ. So thank you for the opportunity to allow me to help our audience, better understand these concepts. At this time, I want to kind of give you an opportunity to share last thoughts and to engage in not so shameless plugs for yourself or what you want anybody listening or watching to know about you and where they can follow you and learn more from you.
Yes, awesome. Thank you, Cashin. Cashin with Cashin, what an amazing opportunity it is to really sit here and have conversations not only about the areas where I lead in terms of the DEI space, but to also really have a more in-depth opportunity to talk about personal financial education. This has been very helpful. Taking notes as we were going through this segment. But also you can find me at gnets _ on Instagram, or gnets movement at Facebook, essentially grooming the nets. It really focuses on mentoring in a virtual space. And mentoring could appear to be many things, or can be a variety of things. And the way that I look at mentoring is, how do I create a one-stop shop experience where marginalized, minoritized people of color who are going into entry-level positions, whatever sector you're in, understanding the different pathways to growing and expanding in your career choice, whether it is the traditional education route, whether it's entrepreneurial, or whether there are other roles where you desires to go in terms of your career and impact. And so that's essentially what Grooming the Next is. And also I do independent consulting work for DEI. And so I'm always available to set opportunities to really come into your workplace, into your company and organization, and offer some expertise and knowledge around how to really create a sense of belonging, improve your workplace culture, and also talk about some equity strategies, and ensure that all of your diverse employees and your leaders and within your company are able to thrive in a healthy culture.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your time, Mr. Phillips. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And until next time.